The reality is, operating the world as a nation state, we have to convince another nation state to take its people back. We can't just deliver Shabir Ahmed to Islamabad. So this is the nature of having to do these deals, I think.
The Home Secretary, Shabir Ahmed, is expected to remove a legal loophole today that prevented the UK deporting Shabir Ahmed, the Rochdale grooming gang leader. There was widespread anger when it was announced he would be released but couldn't be sent back to Pakistan. And even with this new amendment to the asylum bill, Pakistan say they won't take him back. So what happens next? Joining us to discuss this further is crime and justice writer David Shipley. David, morning to you.
Morning.
Well, how will the law be changed, and how straightforward is the legal side of things, first of all, in your view?
Well, as with most of these things, it will no doubt require an act of Parliament to amend the law, but that is relatively simple as long as Parliament will vote for it. I think the more complicated issue, as you've said, is really going to be, will Pakistan actually take him back? Yeah,
and this is interesting because we've had this conversation with various people over the last week or so, and Pakistan is saying no, and the argument is, well, you can do a deal with Pakistan, you can withhold some things we might be sending in the direction, you could do a trade for someone else that we might have. That sort of horse trading approach, that makes it a bit parlous, doesn't it?
Yeah, and I think some Pakistani officials have apparently been briefing that they would consider taking Shabir Ahmed if we also deport some political refugees who are here, sort of Pakistani dissidents. Other people have suggested that we could look to cut remittances, cut visa issuance, that sort of thing. The reality is, operating the world as a nation state, we have to convince another nation state to take its people back. We can't just deliver Shabir Ahmed to Islamabad. So this is the nature of having to do these deals, I think.
And this is a problem more generally, isn't it? But not just talking about this specific terrible criminal. That it's very easy to say we should deport foreign criminals, for example. But if they come from Afghanistan, or Pakistan in this case, or Syria, you would imagine, there are many places where you can't just drop them off on the tarmac and fly the plane off, can you?
Although I would say, actually, Afghanistan's an interesting one because the Germans have concluded a returns deal with the Afghan government, and that is now, I understand, beginning to function. So you can negotiate deals, but obviously, of course, it requires the consent of the receiving nation.
What do you make of the morality of this? Again, not with this guy, because clearly he's served a chunk of his sentence. We need to get him out of this country. There is an argument that you could argue this two ways, David. You could say that our taxpayers shouldn't be supporting a foreign criminal in our prisons because it's wrong. We need to get them out of this country. What can happen is they can go back to another country then and not be in prison at all. So if someone's committed a bad crime, is it better to have them being punished in our country for 6 years or something, or being away from our country and being able to live freely in another country?
Yeah, I think this is often the concern, isn't it? That actually we'll send them home and then they'll be out of prison in no time at all. I think reasonably we want there to be a level of punishment which is actually commensurate with the crime. And the issue with deporting people in the system we currently have, where we have effectively porous borders at the Channel, is that they may well even try to re-enter. So it's not necessarily ideal just to deport them straight away. I think at the end of a sentence or towards the end of a sentence, there is a legitimate argument, of course, that we should deport people who have committed serious crimes, that we shouldn't be releasing them into the communities we've done in this case.
And I guess that's the test of the Burnham government and then any new government that comes down the line is, could that become the default position? Can a foreign national who commits a serious crime be punished in this country and automatically? I think that's the phrase that people want, the default option, don't they? They want the default option. You've come to this country, you've committed a crime, you serve your sentence, you get kicked out. That people want that to become the default position.
I think so, and the reality is, to achieve that, we're going to have to do a couple of things. We're going to have to make migration and deportation matters non-judiciable, because the problem is currently that the way these sort of deportation cases interact with human rights law and with equality law often means that there are huge barriers to deporting people, and courts tend to uphold other rights over the right of us as a nation to deport foreign criminals. And really, to fix this and make it the default, we would have to get to a point where these deportations are simply a matter for the Home Secretary or Parliament.
Where do we stand? Where do we get to just finally, David? Because this guy has got out of prison early, not vastly early, but a bit early. Do we have to accept that the prison overcrowding is such that many people will never serve the full sentence, or even the part of their sentence they're supposed to serve? Is that the new normal, do you think?
Well, I mean, I actually say he served 14 years for 30 counts of child rape, and I don't think it's anything like enough.
That's following the rules as they're set out, isn't it, I presume?
Indeed, I think that sentencing is far too low. But the reality of where we're at with prisons is because of prison overcrowding, our sentencing policy is being driven by the fact we don't have enough space in prisons. I think there are lots of people I think we would want to ideally jail for longer. A very obvious example is men convicted of child sex offences, men convicted of possession of child sexual abuse imagery. There's that second group get no prison time at all, by and large. And for public protection, we should be jailing them. And we don't, because we just don't have the capacity.
Yeah.
I think this is the problem with not having enough prison capacity. We end up with sentencing policy not serving public protection or rehabilitation or the desire for punishment, but actually just serving the practical fact that we don't have anywhere to put people. And that's obviously bad.
And we've got a new Prime Minister coming. We'll possibly have a new Home Secretary, a new Justice Secretary. I mean, there's going to be a cabinet change, clearly. Some people might stay in the same positions. We don't know. What do you make of the prospects of a Burnham premiership? Do you think it'll be the same as before? Do you think it will change radically?
I think he clearly is going to lean more to the left than Starmer was. And I think that's what we're seeing today with the announcement about backtracking on the Boris Wave ILR reforms, which is a bit concerning because, as you mentioned at the top, the country, Labour voters and economists, the Treasury all agree we can't let the Boris Wave settle because it'll be ruinous. But actually there's a big sort of caucus within the Labour Party in Parliament who really want to allow them to stay. And I think if Burnham's going to be more guided by the parliamentary party, that's probably not going to be great for sensible governance.
We'll see what happens. David, good to speak to you.
You do.
That's David Shipley, the crime and justice writer. It's a good point, that, Kate, actually, that the dynamic that Starmer had, where there was the left-wing rump of his party and what he might want to do or not want to do in government. Some people think Burnham, because he's left-leaning, can do more of a deal with those type of people, and then he's a bit of a populist, so he might want to get through some policies they don't like, but he'll be better at trading it off. The argument against that, it's the same group of people that stymied a lot of stuff that Starmer wanted to do. Yeah, and there are a couple of stories in the papers today which make clear that group of MPs that had felt that they were not being heard under Keir Starmer are preparing themselves to be listened to by Andy Burnham. And we're going to talk throughout the programme today about accountability, because there is also a move from Conservative MPs who believe that Andy Burnham should delay the parliamentary summer recess, to allow an extra day for him to appear in Parliament before MPs to set out what he's going to do and to talk about his plans and potentially also his cabinet. So we'll get into that later on with the government minister. Because they can't have a holiday. You can't have a brand new Prime Minister with no mandate and go, all right, see you later. Well, currently that's exactly what will happen. I'll be back in September. That's exactly what will happen. And Andy Burnham's team is saying, well, we will set out our plans over the summer, but there are those within Labour and, of course, within the Conservatives who say, actually, that doesn't feel right to us. You're not a teacher. You can't just come back in September and start again.